everyone, how's it going? This is TJ Laessig, TJL5124. You'll notice that I am introducing the show today instead of Tambo. Tambo was having a little bit of technical difficulties on his end, so I will be driving this time, and I'll be joined by my co-host for this episode, Mr. Tyler Tamboline, aka ToeTagginTambo. Tambo, how's it going?
Oh, it's going good, buddy. I'm kind of excited for this. Get to flip it around. I'm sorry, guys. I'm not sure what was going on my end, but TJ's more than comfortable and ready to roll with this. So I'm excited to flip it around, do the show a little bit different, and good that we get to tie it full circle, man. We'll talk about the event a little bit on the weekend, but we did the Monday show, the Wednesday show, and of course, we're back here again today. So I'm excited to sort of bring it full circle. I'm not sure how your week went. Mine wasn't amazing, but thankfully our boy Noto talked me onto some Patrick Rogers top 20 love. So that helped out a little bit. And then decent results, but nothing too over the top for me.
Very, very nice. Yeah, I did not have a good week, I'll be completely honest. And I'm not surprised. It was a week that, even when we're talking on Wednesday, I was never fully comfortable with this field, with this tournament. I thought there were a lot of super close decisions, and we'll get into some of the stuff that I did with my player pool, but I think that I did not take enough stands and just wasn't as comfortable as I had been in previous weeks. But hey, can't win them all. So we'll go through the standard process that we have here. As we can see, we're on the Rotogrinders homepage, like we do every week. We'll walk you through. If we go up to the PGA tab here, and we go to Resultsdb, this is what we are looking at for this show. This is something that obviously Tambo and I are looking at every week on this show, but also I think it's just a valuable resource for everyone as well. We've got our sports selected golf, and then we just go up to the calendar, go back to Thursday, which is when the contest started, and then we can see all of the contests here. So we'll go through the flop shot, which was the primary tournament this week, and also go through a couple others, review some of the top lineups, get Tambo's thoughts on the constructions, the players that were used, and yeah. So let's check out the flop shot first. We'll open that up. All right, so we had 88,000 entrants, $15 buy-in, 300K up top. Snake DM 17. 568 points on 20 entries with a nice win here. We can see the lineup Tambo. We've got Tony Finau, Joaquin Niemann, Victor Hovland, Max Homa, Fitzpatrick, Burnsy. I mean, I feel like you've got to have a Finau rant waiting in you, right? Your boy, second place yet again. You don't need to talk about it at this point. You're over it.
Well, I will, because I think, I even saw people on Twitter say you can't say he didn't do what he had to do this time. So I love Tony Finau. I'll preface it with that. I think he's incredible. He's definitely one of the best golfers in the world. The stats are incredible. When they showed him up on the board next to DJ has 38 top 10s with 12 wins. Finau in the same time period has 37 top 10s, but 0 wins. There's something there. And the other thing is too, I'll save it for the Fantasy Golf Degenerates pod for the big rant. But everyone's saying like he did what he had to do. Fine. He got on Sunday when you're out of contention, you pin seek and you try and win the event. He did that. This is how I wish he would play when he was in the lead, because that's what we talked about, taking a little bit more risk. So anyway, people will take this the wrong way, but my thing is this: when he got to 18 and found out that he was in contention, wayward shot left, the only place you can't go, misses his first 10-footer of the week. He was 27 for 27 on 10-footers, misses that. The playoff, he misses it left again, misses a 10-footer on the first playoff hole to seal it, goes left again on the second one, misses another 10-foot. Like, it was just so bad on the way out, and it's unfortunate, man. I love the guy. I want to see him win. He's going to. I'm still standing by it. I'm just saying it's not a hater thing to say these things. It's just the facts. When he got into contention, he did not play his best golf. 2 wayward shots, 3 missed putts that he'd made 27 for 27 on the week. So is what it is, man. Shout out to Max Homa. We'll go through this flop shot though, TJ. I'll show you. Put in my name real quick for the entries. If I hated Max Homa. I didn't like the price at all. It is what it is. 102 up at the top.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Will Zalatoris, 8,300. Max Homa, 8,200. I've done the math. It's $100,000 mistake. If you go there, $99,850 mistake. It would have been second place if you swap 1 for 1. Again, you can't say that I've got all these entries. It is what it is, but just to show it off, like that's what it comes down to, right? You got to play your guys and take your conviction. I didn't play Max Homa. Really, I don't think at all, to be honest. If we check my player pool and go back, I played Zalatoris, all that, but you can go through the winner. I think Snake DM there. Check it out first, but I was excited to see Snake DM's got for.
Yep. You and me both.
0%.
You and me both. I mean, we talked about it on Wednesday. He just felt so overpriced, right? At 8,200, we had talked about the fact that this same strength tournament a couple of months ago, he would have been 6,600 and wouldn't have been playing him. Obviously, he's in good form, and then he comes up with the win. So it's not always going to work out, but I think we were both had the same thought process there in that it felt like Max Homa was a bit overpriced, and hey,
I think it's like the pricing is a huge factor that sometimes we just have to, look past a little bit, but buying the dip on a guy like Will Zalatoris down at 8,300 felt good to me. He of course comes out Sunday and puts up a nice round, but like, where was that all week? And then, Homa just did his thing, congrats to him. That was awesome. It was such a tough rooting experience on Sunday. Like, I was cheering more for Tony because it's been so long and I just want to see him break the streak. But Homa's a great dude. I listen to a lot of his content. I still love the sort of mental aspect of all things life. So, we listened to him on a podcast a couple weeks back talking about it. And I brought it up when people brought up the Tony Finau thing, and Finau always talks about hopefully this, and I'm going to try and do that. And Homa is so everyone's hoping and trying, of course, but it's, almost like the old adage of remove that word. There is no such thing as try. It's, you got to just think good thoughts. And it doesn't always mean it's going to come true. That's a lot of mumbo jumbo that people will say, but I did notice that. And he even mentioned again in his post interview that he talked to his wife. She said, forgive quickly. He did that. His caddy is his boy, kept him in line. He missed that 3-footer, man. That's a lot of perseverance to miss that putt and then come back and make that tree shot that was there from the clip beside it and click it up on and then make that, or we'll miss that, but get lucky that Tony missed again. I just need, it all has to come together. We see it in DFS all the time, and Snake DM, man, it's 568 points, 20 entries. They saw it come to fruition this week to the tune of $300,000. So I will say this, TJ, if you look at that lineup, 3 8K guys.
Yeah.
So if you think back to our Wednesday show,
not good. Not what, we talked about, so that's not the approach that I took, but we did talk about that being kind of a unique construction in the field where we've got the elite golfers at the top end. Thought that more of that stars and scrubs or balanced stars and scrubs build would be popular, and going completely contrarian here, starting with Finau at 9,300. That's really taking it to the extreme, but obviously works out super well here. And I also noticed that it has that typical ownership breakdown that we like to see, where two guys above 20%, two guys in the teens, two guys below 10%. And look, all 6 extremely, extremely solid golfers. So can't poke a hole really in any of these. The only thing that we had said was that we thought Homa was overpriced. We didn't say that we think Homa's not a good golfer. We just thought that maybe the price wasn't right, and maybe both of us were being a little too price sensitive there for someone that's in great recent form and has shown some upside in the past.
The crazy part is, though, it just goes to show, right? Nothing is set in stone. We know this, it's golf and everything, but, look at what he faded. If you think about it, DJ, Rory, JT, Rahm, Xander, Cantlay, all these guys, Brooks, like, think about the big names in the field, and none of them were required to put together this lineup, which was an awesome score. We'll see what some of the other ones are along the way, but I'm pretty sure Snake DM 17 took down more than just this. And maybe with the luck of the Irish 77 there, we need to get a 7 in our name or something, man. That looks sick. You got 5124. You forgot the 7, man. That's the kicker. And then shout out to RJ Rat down there. I believe we were just looking at them a week or two ago on this very show where they were in the mix again. And I know they were up and down the board. I think they had 1 or 2 up there, and it just sort of didn't pan out in the end with obviously, to their dislike. But DJ, man, just, he's the one who didn't really come through on Sunday. He was just a little off. I thought he could sort of come back and win the thing. I thought Burns would crash a little more than he did. He did down the stretch, but he, for what he did in the closing of round 3 on early Sunday morning, he sort of fell apart a little bit on Sunday on the back 9, but still a great run for him. Guys like him, Homa, just playing some great golf. And sometimes you just got to stick with that, even with their prices going up. And that'll be a lesson we take going forward. Yeah.
Another really solid lineup here for RJ Rash. Should we check out his player pool, considering he's the
I would. He's been mixing it up quite a bit there.
Yeah,
I'd like to check that one out and see.
I think that'd be a good one. All righty. So we see that he max entered here. We'll just sort by his or her top exposures. And here we go. So first thing that I noticed, that they went double the field on Rahm, and then looks like they picked a couple. So they went pretty stars and scrubs heavy, I would say, given that their highest exposures seem to be either some of the lower priced guys or the studs in the Rahm, the DJ, Rory, Bryson here. What are you seeing with
the right side shows it? Yeah, like a lot of leverage, right? Yep. So I do like, the more we've talked about this in the past, I lean sort of more this way. Maybe I think mine was 45% is where I started, but I do like this. Get overweight on a few guys and then have leverage on all the rest, especially on a week like this where it's pretty dispersed. when we get to the WGC this week doing shows and stuff. I know you're not on the Wednesday show with me, but when I get to doing that stuff and going through it tonight with Kenny, I'll talk about it on the podcast. Is just around ownership will definitely disperse when you get these star-studded fields, right? When major styles of WGC, even smaller field, there'll be a little bit of a bump to each guy, but because everyone has their darling that they like to play, it sets it off a little bit where there's a lot more guys at 15, 12, 7, 15. Like you see these down the board where RJ Rat's just able to get leverage on all of them, right? The only guy he didn't have leverage on down there was, to go back for 1 second, was Tony Finau, but he still has the field. Same with DJ. Just a little bit over, but still right there in the mix. And then your Fitzpatrick, Smith, Liss, Roms are the ones you're going to bat with. So it does make sense to me from that perspective. A lot of leverage, or equal to the field on some down the board, and then not a super large player pool.
Yeah,
took a couple bullet shots down there on like the Neesmith, Bradley, KH Lees of the world, but this would make a lot of sense to me. And then again, it all then comes back to how you set up your builds. We were talking maybe just 2 8K guys would be enough to set you off and be different. It turned out 3 8K guys was in the winning lineup. So, it's just looking for those tiers and those angles that you can take that are different while still putting a pretty damn good team together. Like you said, Homo's sort of the only guy in Snake DM's lineup at least. And then if you look at RJ Rats, these are all great golfers down the list. Obviously a stand on Luke List, but I think everyone liked Luke List and just didn't want to play him. And turns out he only comes in at 6%. So you actually were, he might've thought 12% or 10% Luke List to go 34 and ends up being, way over the field, almost 7X at 35%, 34%.
Yep. Yeah. And I think you made a great point there on the ownership being spread out in these stronger fields. So highest person, only 27% owned. And, like we said, pretty dispersed among those top guys. None of the value guys are over 20% owned. We saw, that kind of 7K range that we were evaluating on Wednesday, just a lot of different options there, whether you were looking at the Burns, the Tringali, the Corey Connors, who hurt my personal lineups for sure with his miscut in the last hole. But yeah, overall, nice player pool here. And then you also see X and out, Xander and Cantlay is a nice stand there. Because I think it was pretty clear that they were likely to be, if not the 2 highest owned, 2 of the top 5, just given their price point, their performances recently, and they fit into a number of different builds. So yeah,
hindsight's 2020, of course, but when you look back at it and think about it, that's the other thing about these really strong fields. And I will take it into consideration this week with the WGC, is just where, something like this, especially where it's sort of a tougher track, anybody can win, the field's so strong. There was so many guys around X and Cantlay that, as much as they seem underpriced, back to, again, I think our lesson of the day and going into this week is pricing, is some can seem overpriced, some can seem under, but then there is other factors to consider. And again, we're talking here now results oriented based on the fact of where RJ Rat ended up and what the winning lineup was with Finau as the helm. But I think that you just think about it. Xander and Cantlay and X feel extremely underpriced and almost like you just have to play them. There was a lot of guys around them that can do damage and did do damage that they weren't really necessarily required in that sense. And it would take, it takes a lot of risk to go against them, but there is reason to do so, is what I'm finding.
Yeah. I think one of the mistakes that I made this week was not being willing to take a stand on some of the top guys and just having this feeling of like, oh, I can't fade DJ. I can't fade Cantlay. I can't, you got to fade somebody. And I usually have no problem doing that, but usually I have a clear preference of one person over another. And I just could not make up my mind this week. And we can get into my player pool in a bit. Did
you max the 5? I was going to say, we can go to the $5 now and just see. Let's see who won it.
Out, because you'll even see that I did a different strategy than what I usually do, because I wasn't comfortable. And I think I just got my whole self out of whack, which goes to show that I'm still new to this and still trying to figure it out. But yeah, you can see I didn't go 60% on anyone, and I didn't go heavy on any of the top guys because so I try. Yeah, of course, Tringali. So I try to take a little bit of an inverted approach to what I've done in the past. What I've been doing the past couple tournaments is that I would pick 2 of the high-end guys and go way overweight on them because I felt extra strongly about them. And then I would spread out a lot of my exposure towards the bottom. But with this strong field, like I said, I could not make my mind up at the top. I didn't have a strong view. So I kind of got either at or above the field on all of them, and then tried to take a stand on 2 lower guys in Tringali and Connors, which Connors really didn't work out. Tringali was fine, not great. And yeah, like you can say, this does not look like a lot of my previous player pools have looked like. And I think I just got a little bit out of my comfort zone. And I should have just said, you know what, I'm going with Rahm and not Rory. And then I'm going to go with DJ and not, I think I did fade JT, but I think I just need to take more stands next time, because then it gets me into my comfort zone too, where I feel like I can build the right lineups from there and not worry so much about the players, but think more about the overall construction and the player pool that I'm building.
Yeah, I mean, it's all to each their own. And this is sort of your strategy. Like say you switch it up, you're playing around and messing with it. I don't hate it, because you took a stand on some value plays that would then allow these studs to mix and match and get in there when you didn't have a good feel up top. And I've got no problem with mixing and matching. You know, I talk about it all the time where, you know, Rory and X could be Cantlay and Rahm, for example, right? Or whatever you're using those savings if you have $100 left over. So just the point of, that's how you're trying to play it, because you never know which combination. Imagine trying to pick that. You know, you can look at all the Vegas odds in the world or whatever else it might be. And then also too, even if you are taking stands at the top, it's really hard to get it right. You know, you were on the Wednesday show with me. It pained me to X out JT. I'm loving day one JT when he's like +7. And I'm like, yes, amazing move. But remember who I X'd him out for? Rory. Remember who misses his first cut in like 30 events? Rory. So there's where, you know, you can't get them right. You know, it's just one of those things where you got to mix and match and play through it, and just be good with where you put yourself and try and put yourself in that position to have the opportunity to get to the top. So I think this is fine. I just think it didn't work out. That's really what it comes down to.
Yeah, right. Yeah. If Corey Connors wins the tournament instead of Max Homa, then it probably works fine. So yeah,
exactly that. Yes.
Obviously, it's hard to not be at least somewhat results oriented, but I do say that even as I was building and submitting Wednesday night, that I didn't feel as comfortable and as confident as I had in previous weeks. So I think that, and we've got a lot of strong fields coming up, so I'm going to get a lot of practice at it.
Let me ask you this too, TJ, I noticed there, but did you use more guys this week than normal because of the uncertainty?
I did, yeah. I did use a little bit more guys too.
Which is fine. I just said, like, I one thing I was going to say, I do like at the bottom, if everyone's watching here, you can see 4.67% is on 150 lineups. That's still a decent clip of guys. So you didn't like just take the one-offs, which is one thing I've got better at in the past, where I'm just, you know, end up with this guy. Now, the odd time, if I have like a rare lineup that I just love for whatever reason, and there's like two guys at 6,200, that's where you might see me take a shot, because I'll only play one guy down that low anyway in a Stars and Scrubs build typically. And I'm like, okay, I can't decide between this guy or that guy. I'll just play them both. And on 150 lineups, doing a 1v1 may not be ideal, but in some cases that could be the difference. If your other 5 come through and you really like the build and think it will be unique, and go from there. But I did notice it looked like your pool was a little bit wider than normal, which is okay. I just was curious if that was because of the uncertainty that you talked about.
Yeah, I think it was. And I don't even think it was intentional to build a bigger pool. I think it just ended up that way, again, because I was a little bit uncomfortable. But yeah, I do intentionally put a minimum 5% for anyone that's in my pool, just because I don't want just one lineup or two lineups with a guy. I want at least the 7 or 8 lineups. And then if I don't want 7 or 8 lineups with them, then I'll just X them out entirely, rather than having like, 1% here, 1% there. Because then if you have one lineup with, I don't know, if I had made one lineup with Max Homa, that obviously would have been great, but then you have to also get all the other pieces right. So might as well be in on a guy or not.
Past, and especially with your guys down at the bottom, I think that's the biggest factor. So Malnati, for example, is obviously risky and didn't pan out, but use Matt Jones where it did work out if you want, or Patrick Rogers. 1%, like if you have 5% and call it 7 lineups, we'll just, say it's 7. If someone has 20 lineups in and they feel pretty good about themselves, the 20 lineups in the same tournament, you've got 150, they would need to have almost, they need to be 40% Patrick Rogers to be on the same playing field as you. They're not going to have 7. So if they go Patrick Rogers in one lineup, makes it a lot more difficult. And you still have outs with 7 lineups. If he ends up winning the tournament, now you've got 7 6-game parlays, if you will, that include the winner at 1% ownership. So maybe you can hit on it that way. It doesn't mean you will, but it gives you more outs to the top. And that's where I used to play a lot of one-offs and just like, at least if I have them, it could be the right combo. But I find you're just limiting yourself so much. So I was happier just to start moving off those guys and taking some stands. If you get it wrong, you get it wrong. But if you get it right, at least you got 7 outs to the top with it.
Yep.
Using 150 as the example. So no, I definitely like that call. I like that play. We can go back and check out Shambles, a good name, sort of how things went overall in Shambles.
Yeah, here we go. Shambles, top 2 in the drive to green.
Different
561.5, 555.5.
Wow, what a drop
nice
too,
scores.
35,000 between first and second.
I know. That was another thing that I wasn't comfortable about this week. And I think I even had mentioned it to you. I either mentioned it to you on Monday or was slacking you about it. But I didn't like the payout structure of this either. Honestly, if I wasn't doing it for the content, I probably would not have multi-entered this week because I didn't like the structure and I didn't have a good feel for the field, but I'm kind of forcing myself out of my comfort zone, like I said, to try and get better. And I know that for me, the max entering this is not, like a big investment in terms of what I'm doing. So I'm using it more as a learning experience than as my primary goal with doing this is to make money, if that makes sense.
Oh, for sure. And I think the other thing too is just, we'll look at Shambles' winning lineup and their pool, because I think this is where people can get in at, 39 lineups. Shout out to the Dirty Sheik, good guy. I've met him before. He got 50 lineups in and ended up coming 6th. But I think that one thing to keep in consideration is that the payout structure should lean to some of your decision making. And what I mean by that is, 50,000 versus 15 for second. I don't mind the idea of getting a little bit more contrarian. If it's within your wheelhouse or your range, and even then, if you want to throw 20 lineups in for the $100, that's to me a much better way. That's where I'd think about, okay, maybe I can just X out Cantlay and X, as we talked about earlier. It's hindsight and results oriented now, but I'm just saying to think about it beforehand. This is definitely a good argument that we would think about or could make going in. Look, if I'm just going to play 20 lineups, I'm going after the 50K at the top, which you're playing to win. I don't want to have that happen. And so be it. What if you come in second? It's definitely going to suck at the time being because of the 35K drop off, but you're in for $100. You're taking 20 bullets. You're blowing $100 instead of going to the movie theater, which many aren't these days, or whatever your entertainment source might be. You're blowing it that way with the shot at 50K. And if you come up short, so be it. You turn $100 into 15,000, but I definitely think it leans to being more contrarian to try and get the chance to the top and going in on a little bit of a tighter pool. So let's talk about Shambles' lineup, and then let's move to see what they did with their pool to put them in first and second. And maybe you can check in the search right quick. Did they have anything else up there? Was the core maybe super tight and they ended up with like 20th and 50th that we can't see there? 51st.
1, 2, and 50. So yeah, three in the top 50 essentially, and then another in the top 500, but then
top 10 or so were over 470,
well,
which was a nice little score, top 7 or 8. So yeah, what's the winning lineup look like here?
All right, so the winning lineup here, we've got Rahm, Finau, Homa, Tringali, Burns, and Wyndham Clark. So first thing that I would personally notice, one guy in the 10K, one guy in the 9K, one in the 8K, and then skipping over that 6K range, which seems to be something that we've seen quite a bit so far this year. I don't know if there is anything to that or just happens to be coincidence, but I feel like we've been seeing a lot of winning lineups that are all in the 7K and up range. So just something to think about, and definitely want to be considering the tier drop-offs between some of the 7K guys and some of the 6K punt type plays. But really like this lineup. It's got pretty similar ownership breakdown to what we look at, although they don't have anybody over 20%. But like we said, ownership was pretty spread out. There were only a couple guys that you could get to that were even 20%. But really like this build here. Obviously, I always love Rahm, and I think getting Rahm at 16% was great this week. Finau and Homa were the must-haves. Everyone knows how I feel about Tringali, and then Burnsy and Wyndham Clark were in my pools as well. What do you think about this lineup, Tambo?
A lot of things you just said resonate. I think, first off, no 6K guys has been a thing we've discussed thoroughly. I started to think and even you saw on the Wednesday show, I always limit it to one because I'm just, again, I've seen it so many times. I've played so many events. It just never works out. And even if you get it right, I can't say never, don't get me wrong here. I'm just saying almost always you're looking at these lineups and there was a way that you could have done it differently to still beat that. So it's never really been a necessary factor. And it leads back to what you had just said about, having at least 7 of those guys if you're going to do it, because at the same time, if it does work out, you want to have more angles to it. I think it factors in more, to be honest, TJ, at a tournament like, let's say, the Rocket Mortgage, when Bryson is like a must-have because there's 4 par 5s that he's going to score on. I know I faded him last year stupidly, but I can admit that. And now I just think back, and now I'm trying to tie things in and learn from my experiences. And that would be one that stands out to me. Okay, like he's the class of the field. You need him. There's another guy right behind him that's probably the class of the field. And then the 9K was a bunch of guys at the time that were like, we don't even need those guys. So why not then just jam 2 guys, try and get 3 in the 7s and get your 6 in, then that makes more sense to me. Okay, let's do it that way. But at a week like last week, where it's extremely strong fields and guys like Homa, Fitzpatrick, Smith, Will Zalatoris, all these guys in the 8Ks that we mentioned can definitely all be in the top 10 and in the mix here, then why are we going down to the 6K range? So that to me makes a lot of sense. I know, again, everyone will have their darling or their thought process of what if Rom and DJ just take over, then sure, could have, but build a few of those. It's just, what's the likelihood of that happening? Like, go ahead and bet a Rom DJ exacta 1-2, and you get pretty good odds on that if you want to if you think that's the play. Because again, even if you get that right, you can then get the 6K guy wrong. You can then get the 6K guy right and get the 3 others wrong. So again, you're building an exacta of your own in a lineup that has even worse odds. So that's sort of my point there. And then back to this lineup. I mean, 19, 16, 15, 13, 9, 5. It's a very similar structure when there was only 3 or 4 guys over 20%. So sort of fits that notion of what we normally build like. And then just looking at that, it's a lot of good golfers. Wyndham Clark maybe would be the off the wall play there, but like Rahm, Finau, Tringali, Burns, definitely guys we loved. Homa, we've already got that wrong, so we can go there, but that fits in. And then Clark is just the guy who rounded it out. And I honestly don't know if Clark was the best $7,100, so he probably could have got there in a different way too, even at the 7K range. So definitely a nice lineup. And what's the second place one look like? How much did he change?
Not much. Just a 1v1. James Hahn versus Tringali. That's all.
Yeah, and if you go back to ownership for a second, what was Tringali again?
Tringali 15.6 and Hahn 6.75.
Certainly don't hate that. And that's where another factor you could look at is kind of what I already mentioned earlier, just to tie it back, was sometimes I'll look at it and just make a 1v1. That's an example of it too, where Tringali picking up steam. Look, we love that train. We were all aboard again and go after the train. But I think when you see it like that, you could also think, hey, I don't want him to be the one guy to ruin my lineup. And that's just maybe a mental thought you could get. And you say, look, I'll flip him to a guy that nobody's really going to be on. I like the rest of my build. Let's roll. And again, sure enough, there you are. And this is what you end up with. So shout out to Shambles. That's a really nice couple of lineups. Let's look at his pool.
Yeah, let's check out his pool, because I think it's interesting to see, right? Because he didn't go full 150, but he made 39. So maybe that's a little bit more reasonable for some people if you don't want to go for the full 150, but you also don't feel comfortable with a single bullet.
I was just going to say, we were going to look at the $200 single entry, or we have been in the past. And I think we've talked about it where you can take your shot in that, but sometimes people just don't feel comfortable, myself included, with one lineup for the week. And they want to get something going here. Here's a way, 40 at $5, good way to get after it. And then you get to sort of build a pool and get some experience while chasing a bigger prize. And you don't have to just play the $4.20 max if you don't want to, right? You can go up a little bit and take shots at the top in something like the $5 where there's a bigger prize pool.
Yeah. I mean, I'll start off by saying here that Shambles, I love you, because Tringali, Gim right at the top. I mean, must be written in the value articles every week, because I think I've written about each of them like 6 different times in the past month. But on a serious note, I do think that they were both good plays. Obviously, getting almost double the field on DJ here. I think by going 38%, you're clearly trying to make sure that you're overweight on DJ and that general roster construction. And this is big. 3x the field pretty much on the winner, Homa. So that's a nice stand there. You can see that this person went with a lot of leverage on people that were going to be high owned, right? We're not seeing it outside of Gim and Wyndham Clark here. It's a lot of people that were coming in with ownership, but still making sure to get over the field and get some leverage there on the positive side.
Yeah, I think the one final thing I would say and stands out to me is just that this show goes to show, TJ, kind of what we were talking about a little bit earlier, where we're hard on ourselves when we look at it after the fact, but like you can make a lot of mistakes. And I'm not saying they're mistakes. These guys all made the cut and scored, but DJ, Cantlay, X, all at 33 to 38%. But because of the Homa play at 35, now there's a bunch of lineups that you have more chances to get it right with. So you don't have to be perfect. So there's two things, you don't have to be top 10 guys all make the cut and score well. Obviously that's going to lead to a great week for you, but I'm saying, you can make some mistakes there and still have it happen. So, build accordingly, get your lineups together the way you want them. And then it can come down to a little bit of luck in the end, but the skill was having Homa at 36%. That's 3x the field. putting the faith there, and then he goes out and gets the job done. So, Finau down below 28%. Neesmith took some stands on some guys that put up some points there. So now overall a solid pool. How many guys did he use? Not very
I
many.
love this too. Pretty much aside from these three, which it seems like we're maybe in
But
one or two lineups.
this will happen
Everybody
in 20 to 40
10%
lineups.
plus. Yeah, no, I think that's great. I like that. Like, I know I said that I don't want anyone under 5%, but if you're making 39, you kind of have to. Like, sometimes it literally just won't work. So, but I like that. Generally speaking, they went with 10% above, so they were in on the guys that they were in on and played a pretty tight player pool, which I think I like that. I think if you're playing 39 lineups, you should definitely have a significantly tighter pool than when you're playing the 150. Would you agree with that?
Or do you
think? Okay.
Yeah. No, I definitely agree. And I think, like I said, this is where we just had this speech about make sure you get, enough of your guys at the bottom. This is different, right? That's what we're saying. When you've got the 150, I use the math example to show you your 7 versus someone who has 20. They're not going to probably have 40% Patrick Rogers that's 1% owned because they don't want to commit 7 of their 20 to him. That's a little bit worrisome, but for you, it's okay with 150. When you're in the middle here, like 20 to 40 range, I don't mind a few flyers at the bottom, but it's the same thing. You can't put them in a bunch. So why not just take a couple shots on it? If that's what you feel comfortable with, then go ahead. And like you said, also to make it work, unless you're, STL Cards, my boy, out there building the perfect pool every time where it lines up to like the exact percentages. I think it's because his accounting background, balancing the ledgers and whatnot all day. He's got it together really nicely, but that's a fine line where he actually figures out, okay, I've got this many guys above the median, this many guys below. If I put the proper uniques on and mix them properly, it's going to work out to a pretty balanced portfolio where I still have leverage on everyone else. I really do love the strategies, my boy. I'm just saying that's where you'll see it work. Here, everybody above 10%, except for 3 guys, those could just be the guys he siphoned through on that lineup that he really liked, maybe, right? Maybe that's the ones in 100th and 200th place. But I'm okay with that, and I definitely agree with you on the tighter pool for less lineups. Go for it, right, if you're going for the top.
Yep. Agreed. So I think it's a good look here for those of us out there that maybe don't want to get all the way into building 150 lineups, but maybe you can try a 20, 30, 40, something in that range and work with a little bit of a smaller player pool, but get yourself those different combinations.
Go all in either. He still kept it around that 40% rate. Like if you look on his ownership, total ownership, max of 41 on Tringali and then down from there. So it's not like you have to be the all-in approach. We've seen that work. We just showed it off there last week with our guy, but 100% burger, whatever it was, and one other guy, but you don't always have to do that to get to the top, right? He made not mistakes. These are great plays. They still were in the mix. They just didn't do their job of what we expected, but I'm saying you could still have those types of guys and get some unique builds in there that still fit home into them and got the winner with Finau and whatnot. So yeah, love the builds and congrats to Shambles on a pretty big week.
Yeah. And like you said, 39 entries at $5 turns out to be right around $200. And so if you are more interested in building multiple, you can go that way, or you can jump right into the $200 single entry, which we talked about. So let's scope that out for a second. We've got Fatty Ray with 524.5 points and the first prize of $50,000. Dustin Johnson, Will Zalatoris, Max Homa, Tringali, Burns, Wyndham Clark. So seeing a lot of the same names that we've seen, but glaring omission is they did not need Tony Finau due to the nature of the smaller field. So let's see what this was winning with. The flop shot, we had 568 winning, and in the single entry, only 524 needed to win. So as we talked about, when you get into the smaller fields, the single entry don't need to hit the absolute nuts. Still needed to have Max Homa, but did not need to have both Homa and Finau in the lineup. Tambo, what do you think about this build?
Really nice. I think it skips the 6, skips the 10, skips the 9. That part makes sense. Went with DJ, the favorite. Let's get that out of the way and go from there. What was DJ's ownership in the flop shot again? Just out of curiosity.
Let's see. In the flop shot,
you probably go to ownership and see it that way. 24. So it looks like in single entry, a lot more people made the move to go off. So a little bit higher dollar. Obviously, single entry, that'd be the spot to do it, but still got there. I think that's sort of the key for me that stood out right away was, and I thought that was to be the case. We're like 6-7% lower, but if you're going to use DJ as that, you don't know he's going to come in lower owned, but you can assume that some people will go off the favorite, then do it in a different way. And if you look, most people had those X, at least one of X can't lay the 9K range, something like that in their lineup. So I like that. made the switch and went with no 10s, no 9s, and then stayed out of the 6s has been the key, like we talked about the whole way. So that made sense to me. Maybe go down to, so yeah, congrats to Fatty Ray Ray. I want to see the Dirty Sheik in 12th because we just talked about him. Like I said, I know I'm a good guy, but he did well in the $5, I believe it was, that we had just looked at, or maybe it was the flop shot. I can't remember. And just want to see what he chose to do for his single entry. Can you go back for a second just to the tournament he was in that we saw?
Yeah. Was it the flop shot?
I think it was the $5.
The $5, got it.
With 50 entries. Just out of curiosity, this is kind of cool to look at just to see.
There you go.
So what was it? 551.5 with a Xander Finau. So no 11s, 10s, or 6s. Okay, now let's go back to a single entry. And
here's the single entry.
This is it here. And it's got, okay, so it skips the 10s and the 8s and adds a 6. So pretty interesting, but I think we should compare player pool over on the 50 entries in the $5. This is what I would probably do just to compare and see. This is
interesting. Yeah, no, walk me through it. This is good. All right, so we're going.
Is it the Dirty?
It might have been. Yeah.
And then sort by ownership, which it should already. There it is. Okay. And now we got to just be able to click back and forth right quick because I know he used DJ. He used Neesmith, Finau, Davis, Lanto, Burns. Go back. Finau, Davis, Lanto, Burns. So look at that, right? Yeah. The commitment stayed put, and that's just what he put together as a single. So again, shout out Dirty Sheik. That's awesome. I know he didn't get there, but good guy. And if you look at this is just good to look at, guys. It's someone who I know plays a lot of PGA DFS, plays well. You know, the pool is there. He definitely disperses it more at the bottom than we just talked about. But if you go to the top, that was his lineup that he committed to. Like if you look, it was Davis, DJ, Finau, Neesmith. Oh my gosh, this is crazy because it was Burns, Lanto to round out his $200.
That's probably the only people that he could have fit. Is basically go down the list.
For sure it is. This is the double-edged sword though, right? It's he committed to his guys. He played them heavily in multi-entry on 50 lineups. He played them in a single entry and correlated up and said, these are the guys I love the most. So I'm going to be on them and I'm going to use them in single entry. Unfortunately, he can only fit those 4 and the 2 below. And the one that the 5th man that would have been in is Max Homa, who's the winner. And if you look, he came in 12th in the $200. So we'd have to go through it. We're not going to do this now of 2v2s, but I'm sure there was something there that could have fit, right? It all depends on how you get there. If you look at, it's probably like Davis.
It's probably Rom and Homa versus
it's Rom and Homa versus Davis DJ by the looks of it, right? $700 to get up to Homa, $700 to come down, 10-6 or 10-4. I'm pretty sure Rom was 10-4 though. And would have still had some points. He definitely had a great scoring Sunday. So there's the difference between him winning this tournament right there, right? Homa in there and is what it is. No, it's good to look at though. I think that's one way to look at it. And that's always something you can do, right? If you've got your entries, you can reserve them in advance, save them, do your multi-entry pool first, get your thoughts really clear, start seeing a lot of lineup builds that are going to be used there, start seeing who you're heaviest on because you'll start getting that conviction as we did last week on the Wednesday show, TJ. And then you can just take your pool from the Lineup HQ lineups tab and see who your ownerships are and start seeing what the best versions of that looks like when you put them all together on the same thing with the lineup builder bar, or just start looking through your own lineups because they probably will be in there anyway. And then just pick your favorite and plug it into your reserved lineup over on DraftKings for your single entry. So certainly a lot of ways you can go about it, man. I don't know if you had anything more on the $200 single entry or not, or anything else you want to talk about.
No, I love the correlation between the single entry lineup and the I guess not MME, but the player pool here. It's something that I do as well. Just because I'm playing someone in my single entry doesn't mean I intentionally try to fade them in my MME. Usually it's quite the opposite, and I'm trying to get overweight on them in the bigger tournaments as well. Other than that, I think we covered just about everything. Was there anything else that you wanted to touch on today?
No, I don't think the show is good this week. I appreciate you hosting it and getting us through these technical difficulties here on my side. Obviously it worked for the stream at least, so that's good. But maybe a last point on just what you just said there. I think that's, again, to each their own, but as far as the single entry thing goes, I know I've battled with this back and forth. So some may be doing the same out there, but sometimes I want to almost use it as hedge life where I'm like, okay, I like this. But I guess, what I would say is you can still hedge a little bit in the sense of how you're building while still using the same pool, right? Like he went with DJ there and he went and committed to it, but you could have maybe you could have went with Xander, Morikawa, Homa, Davis, Finau, and one value play and still not had a terrible week, just maybe not quite as good. And again, that's being results oriented. I'm just trying to say there's still ways you can go about it if you feel like you're already heavy enough on DJ at 38% and you want to have a little bit of equity in the other lineup where if DJ has a bad week, you might have been able to get there a different way and still use your pool. I just think I definitely agree with being all the way in on something because you're going to be wrong most weeks anyway, especially in PGA DFS. So why not be wrong with the same guys or right with the same guys? Because if it all goes right, you have yourself a pretty good week, as did the Dirty Sheik. He didn't have any wins that I can see. I don't know what the rest of his week looked like. I'll ask him, but you've got that side of it. And then you've got the 6th place in the $5, the 12th place in the $200. Still a very nice week for as far as ROI goes. And then maybe it hits a little bit harder next time. So again, shout out to him. Great week and just great overall show. I think TJ breaking it down. It was nice to have that run of 3 in a row between you and I.
Yeah, definitely. It's been fun doing the show this year. I think we've had a lot of interesting tournaments, a lot of interesting, not only lineups to break down, but player pools. I like that I feel like we've gotten a lot more into the strategy behind the player pools in our second edition of doing it this season compared to last season. So yeah, it was a pleasure being on the other side of things here, Tambo. Where can the people find you?
Yeah, for sure, man. On Twitter at ToeTagginTambo. Hit me up there. I don't know if it's turning into a full-on Top Shot account just yet, but it's going pretty hard. We're digging in. We're digging into it. You've got me hooked on it a little bit. So having some fun with that. Just say don't put in money you don't care about because it's not free money as people are out there saying. You got to be diligent with it and see. But man, other than that, just I've been in the Discord as much as I can be, guys. Reach out to me, ask questions. Wednesday nights. So Tuesday I do the show with Noto and Cards. The Fantasy Golf Degenerates podcast will launch overnight. Wednesday doing the show with a special guest using Lineup HQ, bringing some of these things to fruition, trying to, build off of this to say, okay, we saw what worked. It doesn't mean it's going to work every week, but we're looking for what looks like the norm, what can be contrarian, and maybe find your way to the top of some of these tournaments using these things we're putting into place and learning these theories and whatnot. So that's a lot of fun, but then I'm going to be in the Discord thereafter and have it up while we're doing it. So I'll give the early alert this week. If you guys want to ask questions, we're trying to make the Wednesday show a little bit more interactive. It is premium members only, but you're able to go in the Discord, ask the questions there that we can try and relate to right on the show or test out some theories that you might have or some thoughts and ideas and process that we can put through. So appreciate it, man. Again, thank you guys all. And I'll let TJ take us out of here. Let them know where they can find you, what you've got going on, and take us home, TJ.
Yes, sir. Yeah, you guys can find me on Twitter at TJL5124DFS. Like Tambo said, been heavy into the Top Shot stuff lately, so tweeting a little bit more about that than PGA at the moment. We're actually doing a podcast with Alex Baker, Awesomeo, later tonight. If you guys are interested there, going to talk some DFS and some Top Shot with him and just get to know Alex a bit more. Obviously, one of the giants in this industry, so I think it's going to be a fun show. And yeah, other than that, my value article will be coming out sometime tomorrow, and I will talk to you guys again next Monday. Thank you for joining us. See you guys next time.